Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, your mic's fine.
Okay, we are, I think, finally ready to go.
I can hear you fine.
Excellent, good. Alright, I might be muting sound to see how we go, so if otherwise we'll sort of go as we are. So, for the moment, I'll just say, good evening. Welcome to this surprisingly large gathering, and we'll start sort of looking at the second part of today's work. Now, unfortunately, I have yet to set up my cameraman. I do have that all sort of near set up, and the only issue is that I couldn't find Ethernet for it, so for the moment I think what I'm going to have to be doing is just sort of jumping between the podium and looking at the screens so that the recording can actually sort of catch up and see what's happening. So for those of you watching from home, even more so than usual in fact, at least, you'll have to just sort of bear along as best as we go. So anyway, today I'm actually going to be asking a sort of an odd question for a lot of you, and that's going to be, what is a game? And I'm going to let you try and answer it. So, guys, seriously, what is a game? If we're here to be talking about sort of like game dev and making games and things, we have to sort of know what we're trying to make. So, what are games?
When you teabag noobs?
It is a hard question. But yeah, like I say, yeah, if it was something you can think of. Alright, so a few answers here. A game is something that can be replayable for fun. A system to entertain someone, interactive piece of art. The word entertainment is coming up a lot, so things that are enjoyable or interesting to do, and things like that, right? So, are all games enjoyable to play?
No.
No! Fantastic, alright, yes, no indeed, like I say, there are some games that can be extremely painful and very, very boring to play. However, we can probably both agree, some fantastic answers here, that the general purpose when a game is made with the intention of being enjoyable, whether or not it is another matter. Can we agree on that?
Pretty much.
Cool. So specifically, like I say, what is it that makes a game a game? There are lots of things in this world that are enjoyable. So what is it particularly about a video game that makes it enjoyable? What is that thing? What is that thing?
Rainbow sparkles.
Okay. Rainbow sparkles, Melissa. Unicorns.
Yeah, unicorns and rainbow sparkly things.
Probably not. No.
Realisticness.
Realisticness was one answer there. So, feeling more and more like reality. What else?
Yeah, coming from your red zone guy here.
Replayability.
Replayability is something you can come back to as well. So these are the things that sort of have to do with their general properties. But what is it in the core of a video game that makes it enjoyable?
Shooting people up. Oh no.
Animation.
Animation, beating people up. So these are sort of things to do with the way they actually physically play. Alright, so it's a very difficult...
Latency.
Latency. Not latency, definitely not latency. So these are all. It's a very difficult question to answer. So I guess what we'll look at now is I'll sort of have a go at trying to explain my own definition to you about what games sort of are, and more specifically why they're good fun to play. So. Essentially, what a game does is and we can agree with this, is it provides sort of this virtual interaction, if you like. So it creates this general world, one that we can sort of look at, we can play with, and we can sort of see specifically, and it gives the opportunity to be able to engage in what we refer to as interactive play. And playing things is a very important concept in trying to make these sorts of things enjoyable and fun to do. So usually when the player is in these particular worlds, they'll be given something specific they have to do. So they might be given a purpose or an idea or a goal or something like that, and they'll be given a way they can go about doing that through a series of rules and things that they can follow. And I tend to summarize those two things as being what we refer to as rules and goals, which are the two big things that most games usually have. So, these are two things that we can sort of think about as being specific things that will tend to be referred to in the way that we have games. So, a rule is often defined as essentially how the player can interact with the game itself. So, like, when we're playing Minecraft, we can think about this, for example, we are bound largely by physics. We can only move by a certain speed, we can only jump a certain height. Well, you can, I can jump as high as I want, but you can't. So that's one of the things we tend to be bound by. The way that we can place things down specifically is of importance, so where we can put things and how far we can put things and stuff like that. These are all things of matter as well, and these define essentially how we can physically operate with things in the world and things like that. Someone just said you can play Worm. So if you take the example like Worm that has much stricter rules in the way it can move, the player moves at a constant speed, they can only ever turn left or right in the world. So there's a very big limitation in the amount of movement and things they can actually physically do in those games, which is of very much importance. So, yeah, that defines some of the rules that we have to abide by. The other thing is goals. So, a goal usually defines what the player must achieve within the game. So they're given a few things that they can solve. So in the game of Worm, they can collect points by going through things. In the world of Minecraft, does Minecraft have goals?
No.
No?
Semi.
What are some of the things that we can do in the Minecraft world?
Kill the bosses.
There are bosses, so we can kill the bosses. Some could argue that is a specific goal, or it might not be. Like I say, perhaps Minecraft is a game that doesn't provide much in the way of goals, and if that's the case, can we really call it a game?
User in your channel timed out.
So it's an interesting question, and it's something to think about, but most games would typically abide by these individual concepts of having rules and goals. If you have a game that has goals, but it hasn't got any rules, we tend to refer to it as a toy. So this is something where you have like a general sort of set of things that we can sort of make motions with, but there's nothing that we necessarily have to achieve with it. So you know, like a model aeroplane, which you can sort of fly around wherever you want to. It has no inherent ways of sort of controlling it, things like that, but it does have sequence of things that you may want to do with it, or outcomes you want to achieve. Goalless objects, there are fewer and fewer of those around, but yeah, they can be sort of counted as things like perhaps instruments and things too. So it's worth thinking about. Anyway, someone has terminated my slides. I don't know why they did that. Alright. So, the next thing I'm going to be talking about is noughts and crosses. So, what I want you guys to do is, if you haven't heard or played noughts and crosses, then to find out what it is very quickly. And if you have, then I kind of want you to think about a little bit about what are the rules and goals of noughts and crosses. So, essentially, what are the rules of noughts and crosses? What must we do to play a game of noughts and crosses? Let's think about the rules.
To win, one must have 4 of their character in a row.
Okay, to beat the other player, get 3 in a row. We're talking about that. Yes, noughts and crosses and tic-tac-toe are the same game. So that's, everyone is still saying that the rule is that you must get 3 noughts and crosses in a row. That is certainly one of the rules of the game, but it's what I would typically define, given the way I've sort of discussed it, is as being an actual goal. That doesn't constrain how we play the game, it does actually tell us how to win the game, that's right. So, what are the things we must abide by when playing a game of noughts and crosses? We can't just draw 3 symbols and say we've won the game, can we? So, players take turns.
User joined your channel.
What other rules are there? To those confused, noughts and crosses and tic-tac-toe are the same game. Exactly the same, they're just different ways of saying it. You can take turns placing one symbol in untaken places, so we can essentially choose positions from one area to the next, and then we can just place a symbol down. So if the whole board is empty, then we can say like the top left corner, then you might have the center, and wherever you have a free space, you can place a symbol. That's very true. How many spaces are there? 9. Very important thing there. So there are 3 by 3 spaces that we must think about. So yeah, having that individual space and sort of thinking about that is the way that we play. And as you've guys already said, the goal or the winning condition is to make 3 in a row. How do you lose the game?
Having the other person do 3 in a row.
Okay, right. So when you're playing this, you're playing competitively with someone who has the same goals as you do, which is a fairly common thing in a lot of games. And if you fail to win the game, then you lose the game, which is quite a point. And a draw. And how's a draw achieved?
We're playing winning.
But there is no chance of them both getting 3 in a row.
Okay, so yeah, there's a situation where it no longer becomes possible for 3 in a row to be achieved, then we can call that a draw. I'm not sure if usually we standardize this by saying that, like, if there's just no spaces left, that's one way of doing it. But yeah, certainly by saying that there are no spaces left, that's another way of doing it. So excellent, very good. Okay, so those are the rules and goals of noughts and crosses, and that helps us define the specific parameters about how the game is played and things like that. So. Okay, the next one we're going to be looking at is Hunt the Wumpus. Has anyone ever heard of Hunt the Wumpus?
No.
Didn't think so.
No,
Alright.
not really.
Hunt the Wumpus was released in sort of the 1980s, and I'm actually going to send you guys a link because I want you to play it. Now, if you'd be so kind. Let me just...
Okay.
You should be able to Google it, but I'm just... if my browser will let me, I'm just going to quickly fire you a link.
What is it called?
Hunt the Wumpus. H-U-N-T space T-H-E space W-U-M-P-U-S. Hunt the Wumpus. Dream Codex Play Wumpus PHP. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you for that, Zaggy. Alright, so if you can see that link there, please just sort of click that and give it a go. And essentially, just wants you to sort of have a go at it and see if you can decide how to play it. Don't worry, it's not a virus. That's the exact link I was looking for. So yeah, you can go ahead and play that one, which is good. So
My job is out of date.
I'm sorry to hear that. Alright, so that might be difficult. So if you can't play this game for whatever reason, it's instead perhaps just look at the rules on Wikipedia, look at some screenshots and stuff like that, or look for another link if possible. So it should be a few of them around as well. But yeah, generally it should be quite playable. Yeah, there are also videos on YouTube if you want to go for those too. Lots of different things you can do. I've got the nice rotating Java screen, and I might see if I can record that if possible, so you guys can see it. See if Fraps likes that. So, alright. So let's take a look. So we've already got something coming out here. The player moves around section by section, which is absolutely true, and you could indeed make this very easily in ComputerCraft. In fact, even though this game is graphical, the original Hunt the Wumpus was textual. You had a text-based interface. You would just have things like you have openings to left, right, and forwards and back, and you smelled the Wumpus, or you sort of, you can see the glimmer of gold and stuff like that. It was just very, very basic in that regard. So, yeah, those are definitely the ones there. Hopefully some of you are able to find that. Mine has just come up, so let's see if I can record it.
Sound resumed.
No, my video isn't live streaming, so it looks like I can't, annoyingly, so I'm just going to have to talk about it, and hopefully you guys can sort of see it while you're playing. So if you're watching at home, make sure that you're playing it. It is a very basic game, and that's one of the reasons why I chose it. This is one of the very first sort of very successful text-based adventure games that was random, so the player would get a different dungeon each time they played the game. So, right, so essentially, let's sort of think about what the yeah, transported by bats, you can get sort of pick up random treasures and things. The goal of this game, really good question. Are you guys not aware about how this game plays yet? So, essentially, you can see the user can move in 4 directions. They can go forwards, backwards, left and right, and you indeed hunt the Wumpus. That is indeed your goal. The goal is to hunt the Wumpus. If you fail to hunt the Wumpus, or you die, then you lose the game. So, the player starts with 1 arrow, and they can fire the arrow in this particular version of the game using the F key. That chooses fire mode, and then they aim in the direction they want to fire in. Then, when essentially what has to happen is then if the arrow intersects a space that has the Wumpus in it, then the player wins the game, and if it fails to, as in it fails to connect or it misses, then they lose the game. And if they if they walk into the Wumpus's tile, or they walk into a slime pit, then they also lose the game. Okay, so this might be thought of a little bit like the game Minesweepers. So have a look at how it plays and think about what the rules of this game are. What rules does this game abide by, and how does it work? You move or shoot, and you can only shoot 5 times. You can shoot 5 times, really? I was aware in the original game you can only ever shoot the once. What else is there? So there are a lot of things about the way this dungeon works. So think about the dungeon, about what's in it, and about how sort of the rules in that work specifically. So, can you guys see essentially any green stains or any red stains in the world? Okay, so what do those mean? Can you guys sort of figure that one out? Okay, so in this game, there are slime pits and there is the Wumpus. Now, in an area where there's like, you can see that in each of the sort of the channels, rather the caverns are sort of connected by a series of tiles heading in 4 different directions. And essentially, if there is slime nearby, then it means in at least one direction there must be a slime pit attached. Slime will only appear when there is a slime pit right next to it. However, whenever you see...
User disconnected from your channel.
pretty childish. Whenever you see blood, then you know that a Wumpus must be within 2 steps of that player. So essentially, we use this as barometers. So whenever you see a green pit of slime, it's dangerous because you do not know where it is. Yes, in some versions you'll get a breeze instead of slime. That's very correct. In some other versions you'll get like a whiff of gas, and there'll be a gas fume as opposed to being a slime pit. So yeah, so there are a few different things that you can get there too. So as you can see, the point of the game is to sort of try and figure out where the Wumpus is based on the information around you. So if you can find a situation where you know that you're on a bloodstain, and every area around you is also a bloodstain, but there is only one direction. Yeah, there's only one direction. There's a space, and you know that must be the Wumpus. Yes, it is a bit like Minesweeper because it's about sort of reading the visual cues and trying to sort of figure out where they must be. That's the general idea of the game, and that's sort of how it plays. And it has things like bats to add complications. I've seen other versions of things like rock slides, ladders for different multi-dimensions and things. There are a lot of different features in this game, so it's really interesting. It's an interesting one to play and to think about. And about how it works. So those are some of the rules you can see. So for example, we know that so the player can move in 4 directions. They can fire up to 5 times apparently, which is new. They can you will see caverns connected to one another. There will only appear slime pits if with slime with 1 tile around them and blood 2 tiles around them. If the player fires and it hits the Wumpus, they win the game. If they miss, then they lose the game. Those are the rules and goals of Hunt the Wumpus. So that's that particular game. So that's sort of an interesting example of another one that we can sort of look at in the way that they play and things. So let me just start this up again. Terminating my slide program's a little bit immature, but that's alright. Okay, I think that's what we're up to. Okay. So I'm profiting the question here as well, and this is another tricky one. Why are games fun? We play games all the time, and the reason we play games is because we enjoy playing them. There's enjoyments we have when playing them. But why are they fun? What makes a game fun? Once again, I'm going to ask you guys a bit. Okay, so they have all players have a different goal. Players are rewarded. You see people get their eyes cut out. Odd answer there. They're challenging situations we want to be in. You get rewards, things like that. So there are a few different things that have been suggested, and a lot of them have to do with the way in which the game rewards you for playing it. It gives you some positive response for actually playing it itself. So is it only the outcome or the result of the game that's enjoyable, or is the game itself enjoyable as well? So games are fun to achieve, but are games fun to play? That's the question I'm asking. Depends on the story. And it is. It's a very tricky question. So let's think about it a little bit. Sort of analyze some of the features of games that we might particularly see. In this example here, the thing is that, like, say, most things in life have rules and goals. Yeah, that's it. So there are interesting challenges in those games that we can think about in terms of Hunt the Wumpus, like the pits and things. COD players play just to level up, so that's an example where they play for the goals as well. School's not fun. Work often isn't fun. Chores are definitely not fun. But they also have rules and goals, very specific rules and very specific goals. So clearly our definition isn't perfect, because those are also, by our definition, games, and they're not much fun at all. And trying to make work or school into a game, it doesn't work very well. I had an example here. If you play the same level of a game every day after day, then it won't be fun anymore. And we'll talk about why that's the case. So we're saying essentially the reason that life isn't very much fun, work and school aren't much fun, and chores aren't much fun is because of repetition. So do you think if you're given a chore like, for example, shifting wood from one area to the next, and you were given that to do for the very first time, that would be fun for the very first time? And that would get boring after weeks and weeks of play? Probably not. It's going to be boring to start with. It's not something that's very much fun to do. But why isn't it very much fun to do? Let's think about some examples. Okay, so Chess is one of the oldest games that we have. It's been around for absolute centuries. We've been playing it for a very, very, very long time. Like I say, it started out pre-AD, I believe, at least. And it was the very first game that sort of tried to emulate tactical combat in real life. It never gets old, as one person says. It is challenging, it is never the same, and things like that as well. But essentially, chess is just about moving pieces. You just sort of pick up one piece and move it somewhere else on the board, and that's the entire game. It's about moving things around. Why is moving things around on a board fun? What makes that fun? What's inherently fun about that?
Because there are very many unique ways to move around the pieces, and you can have many combinations and different strategies and games.
So there are lots of unique ways to move the game around. There are lots of unique strategies in trying to win the game. So we're saying there are lots of different ways in which it can be played, and strategies and things. And this is getting onto the point that I'm really hoping that you guys will sort of be able to observe here. But recognizing that there is a lot of uniqueness and a lot of interesting ways to play the game has a lot to do with why the game is fun to play. Battle of wits, and multiple ways to replay it really helps as well. And that's one of the things that sort of helped keep chess alive for so many years, which is very impressive. Okay, next I'm going to quote here is Pong. Pong is one of the earliest video games. It was one of the first ones to be released commercially. It is an incredibly primitive version of the game table tennis. So, for those of you who haven't played it, you should look it up now, find a copy. They're very easy to get online. But essentially, there are two bats, one at the top and one at the bottom of the screen. They can move left and right, and there's a ball that bounces between them. That's the entire game. There's nothing more to it. Like I say, it's just about making sure you can keep the ball in play for as long as possible. Yeah, I don't think anyone couldn't have heard of it. Why is Pong? To some people, Pong is extremely boring, and to others, it's really great fun. But the question about that is, why is Pong fun? Why do people ever consider Pong to be fun? Fun fact for you: when Pong was first released in '77, I believe. No, I think it was earlier than '77. It was well known because after a while the machines began to malfunction because the coin slots were broken from being physically overloaded, and they had to be sort of filled out over and over again. So, yeah, it was definitely good fun. To some people, I don't think Pong is fun anymore. Not to anyone. It's interesting. Someone's asked a question here: why are classic games the most fun as to new ones of 1 million pixels? Are the classic games the most fun? Not to anyone who plays modern gaming. That's an interesting point to say there. So, and this is something we'll talk about a little bit more as this course goes on. But yeah, it's a really good question. You know, like I say, people do have different tastes. There are some really bad classic games. It's an extremely good point. Some of them are just awful. Some of them are very good. But like I say, you know, the thing is, like, you know, why was Pong ever fun? What was it about this really simple premise about moving left and right and just catching a ball? Nothing more to it. It feels very much like a chore. Why was that fun? It was first, so at one point it was fun. So now perhaps it's past its prime. So perhaps that's a bad example. I'm not sure. All right, the next one I've got quoted here. Dungeons and Dragons is the next one here. This I put down because I'd argue that it might be perhaps.
User joined your channel.
That's showing a different slide. I'm not sure why that is. I'll check that out in a minute. Anyway, the left one there is the one you're looking at. So yeah, so essentially Dungeons & Dragons is what we would say is probably the most influential game I'm aware of. Like I say, it's one of those games that has influenced the way that sort of our modern culture has evolved in a very, very big way. So it's over it. We have had television, we have had books, we have had movies, we have had many, many video games. We have had a lot of different things come out of Dungeons & Dragons. It's a part of popular culture. It's permeated its way in a very, very big way. So I think in a lot of modern and particularly popular media, we'll see examples of Dungeons & Dragons played around. For those of you who aren't sure about how the game works, it's what we call a tabletop RPG. So you'll have a few people who play in a party, for example, and they will be given roles, like there might be rogues, clerics, mages, wizards, that sort of thing. And then there'll be a man called the Dungeon Master. And the Dungeon Master essentially just invents stories or things to do, and then he just rolls a dice. And then whenever the players want to do something, they say, I want to do this, and they roll the dice and decide whether or not they were successful or not. That's the entire game of Dungeons & Dragons. So essentially, it's a very built-up game of pretend. Why is that fun? Why is that fun to people? Why is that idea of just sort of being in a room and sort of just pretending to do things, why is that enjoyable? unknown outcome. So you're uncertain about how you're going to play. They put us in situations we want to be in without the danger. They allow us to be able to play in a certain regard without actually sort of being in that situation. That's an interesting observation. So you think that because we are role-playing or we're pretending to be in a certain character or position, then that might be enjoyable or be more interesting than it would be to just sort of do these things in a much more sort of boring way. Is that what you're saying? It's interesting. Very, very interesting point. So yeah, so perhaps it's the fact that we're playing a particular character and we are to sort of be able to project and imagine ourselves in that world that the Dungeon Master creates that makes Dungeons & Dragons fun. Okay, the next game I've quoted here, and the free you can do anything you want. Another interesting point about the free things and the many different things that you're able to do, because there are lots of free things and non-constraints within the game itself, which are really interesting. I'm just going to restart my computer. It looks as though the slides have gone out of whack. So. Oh damn! All right, just a second.
Guys, when I'm recording, I'd appreciate you not walking through me.
That's impossible.
Alright, cool. Sorry, we'll just get back into this now, just sort of quickly.
People say they're doing it for fun,
So
walking through me while I'm trying to record.
there we go. Alright, Grand Theft Auto 4 is one I've quoted next. I've quoted Grand Theft Auto 4 as being a game to look at because it's the highest rated game on Metacritic at the moment. It is the most, it's considered to be the best game by critics according to the metrics that Metacritic uses. So, GTA 4 is, we'll say just for argument's sake, one of the highest rated games out there. GTA 4 is kind of an interesting game, as are all the games in the Grand Theft Auto series, because essentially it's a game about theft, murder, violence, killing, drugs, and a lot of death. These things aren't much fun in real life. If you were to step outside, a guy was to run over someone next to you, you would freak out. It would be pretty damn scaring. If you went outside and saw a lot of shooting and things, you would probably get pretty scared. It's really, like I say, the things that are happening in Grand Theft Auto are actually really pretty scary. They're quite frightening. And when they happen in real life, people end up having sort of mental conditions as a consequence of like the terror and things that they see. So, Grand Theft Auto is in many ways sort of a simulation of a life that no one really wants to be leading. And if you do, then you're sort of the people who are behind sort of Virginia Tech and stuff. So, GTA 4 is an interesting example of people who are doing things that are really quite scary. So, why is producing this world, which many would consider to be something that no one wants to live in, fun? Why would people want to be able to play in that situation? Okay, it isn't fun. So to many people, this game is not much fun. So much freedom is another example we've been given here. So GTA gives you a situation where you can do things that you can't do in real life. You're very free to do things that you can do. But again, I would say that those are things that you probably wouldn't want to do in real life. There are a good reason why you wouldn't want to do them, because if you do, you're going to get sort of arrested, or you're going to have to deal with sort of grieving families or drug deals and all sorts of horrible things as well. So, yeah, like I say, why those things considered to be fun in Grand Theft Auto? Why is that enjoyable? Because clearly to many people it is. So, yeah, why is that the case? What is about that that's all fun? It's all virtual, is one thing that I've been told here. So, it provides a situation where, like I say, these things aren't real. But even though they're not real, why are they fun? What makes them sort of fun? If I were to give you a game where, to go back to our chore example, you have a game where you pick up pieces of wood and drop them in the other pile, it's still very virtual, you're free to do it however you want to, but why is that more fun? We can have a short break, yeah, but not a long one. You have strict rules. There are many rules in the world of GTA by our definition. It involves mystery in someone else's life. It makes a system of rewards. You haven't experienced it in real life, so it's not sort of that serious. So, yeah, system of rewards. So it provides you with rewards for things. I would argue that a lot of the things that you do in GTA provide you with no rewards. So, running probably isn't that heavily rewarded in the game. In fact, it's punished. If you run over people in the game, then the police start chasing you. The reward is fun. Chases are rewarding. It's an interesting point. So the enjoyment that you get from playing the game makes it playable itself, even though the context matter and things like that is not that much fun. This is interesting. So you guys are sort of talking about how the way the chases are quite good fun, avoiding getting caught is fun, getting money and sort of running away is good fun. This is all sort of interesting stuff. When you guys play that, do you see yourselves as feeling the same thing that you'll probably feel if you were to literally kill someone, then steal their car and then run away? Do you reckon that's the same situation? No. Excellent. A lot of people there are saying no. It's not the same. There's something very specifically different about the pleasure derived from playing GTA as there is derived from playing, well, from doing this sort of thing in real life. Let's give you guys maybe a 5-minute break, just to sort of take a break and go, and we'll come back to this in just a second. Cool, alright, let's get right back into this. So, yes, back we go. Okay, so, right, so I was just talking about GTA, and let's move on to another example, just really quickly. The Sims 2. This is the best-selling video game of all time, with 20 million copies, so I'm told. It's been very well received. It has a sequel, a prequel rather, which was also one of the best-selling games of all time. It superseded Myst before that, and a few others. You know, then we have things like the likes of Half-Life and things sort of move off as well. So it's done very well. Another screen sync thing issue, is it? Okay, I'm not sure what's causing that, so for now, just look at the left screen. That's the one that seems to be working, alright? So, yeah, so you can see it's all about this sort of issue, but the game, The Sims, is interesting because it's a lot like real life in many ways. The goal of the game is just to live a regular life, and to sort of do it as well as possible as you can in that situation. So that's all there is to the game. It's about building houses, living in them, getting jobs, earning money. These are the goals of the game. Yeah, there are things like aliens as well to sort of mix things up. Designing houses and stuff like that. So what makes The Sims fun? If it's just like real life in many ways, why is that fun? Okay, it's faster than real life. That's an interesting point. So you can do things you can't do in real life. That's very true. There's creativity. There are things that you can, yes, things you can put out as well. So someone before mentioned about being able to sort of move around things. You can play as 10 different characters, right? I think you can play as any different kind of character you want to. I think you choose your character. You can be a girl when you're a guy in real life. Thank you, human. Yep, that's an appeal to some people. I've played Second Life. I do apologise for this, but yeah, I've had to kick him. That was getting annoying. Yes, so there's that. What else is there in Sims that makes it sort of enjoyable? Possibilities. What kind of possibilities? What other things that are you looking to achieve in The Sims? Money, design, health, things. So, objective wealth. It's funny. It's interesting that there's a bit of silence in that answer. What are you trying to achieve in life itself? It's kind of hard to sort of say anything specifically that you want to sort of try and achieve there. So, killing the characters horribly for one person. Indeed, that is for some the goal of the game. Having parties with kids, money, stuff like that. The general achievements that the game provides for you. But it seems another one of those games where it doesn't really give you any specific goals. I mean, I think The Sims 2 had like personal achievements the player could get to sort of improve their morale and things, but there was no specific way you had to get those, and there were no sort of mandates in where the game was played. You could just sort of play the game as you wanted to. So yeah, so it's a game that, again, that doesn't have that many goals and things, and so in that case, is it really a game? And is The Sims a game? It's a tricky thought. It's a tricky thought for questions. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's just something to think about there in regards to the way The Sims plays and things. So yeah. And the last example I have given is anyone that you want to provide. I'm sure you guys wanted to ask this now for a long time. So what is your favourite game? Come on. Minecraft. What else? Natural Selection 2, the shooter. I know the one. Star Fox 64. I love that game. That was a great one. Far Cry 3, Battlefield 3, SR3, I don't know what that is. More Minecraft. Cortex Command, that was a good indie one, I should call that one. Battlefield 3, that was very, very good. Combining FPS and RPGs, given things as well. Saints Row 3, yep. Mass Effect 3, also a very good game. Lots of threes in this, I think. Forza, so the racing game, good fun there as well. Real Lives, interesting choice. Doom, Zelda. I'm glad. I'm expecting to see a lot of sort of contention and anger in these choices, because some of them are going to be very angry and some people are going to be quite interesting, so that's interesting. Good. Real Life sucks. How about Second Life? UFO Enemy Unknown. That's actually a very good game too. I quite like that one. One of my favourites. Half-Life 2. Another good choice. Also an excellent game. Really sort of well-made game like that. So there are all of these different kinds of games. TF2, Team Fortress, another good choice there as well. I actually played that Zumbini game when I was a kid. Quite hysterical. Assassin's Creed 2, another good choice. Portal series, another popular one there as well. So a whole list of games that people can just be very good, lots of great fun and stuff like that as well. Why are those games fun? To you guys personally, why are those games a lot of fun to play? So I think a few of you have like the nostalgia factor. You remember those games being fun, and that's why you seem to enjoy them. But what else? What about them specifically makes them enjoyable to play? Difficulty. Endless. Weird choice. What else? Blood and gore. No story end.
Possibilities.
Possibilities is another one that's coming up over and over again. Solving puzzles, another good choice. I have lots of things to do as well. These are all the things that sort of killing aliens with grenades, playing it and getting better and better. So yeah, it's you can see there are all these different sort of things that sort of factor into how these games are enjoyable to play and things like that. And you guys need to be sort of keening on that same point that there are different things to do. There's lots of different ways to do them, and I think a lot of the games you guys quoted, there are different ways of solving the games, different ways of playing them. They're very interesting to play. There's, yeah, they said they're more strategic and things like that. But they still have a difficult point in answering sort of what makes having possibilities and what makes that sort of fun. I'm actually going to give you guys a possible answer to that question that I've been sort of asking over and over again to see whether or not it sort of helps you guys out. Because it is quite a difficult area, and it has to do a lot with the way the human brain works and the way the human brain likes to do things. So there are lots of things that make games fun, and there are two big things I'm going to quote to you as being possible reasons as to why games are fun. The first is about creating what we refer to as meaningful play or structured play, and the other one's about pattern recognition. Sound like two very weird things to quote on, but they are the two things that I am fairly convinced are the main reason why people play and enjoy games. Very soon. We haven't got much longer to go. This is near the end of the lecture. So, what is meaningful play? Essentially, in video games, we create virtual worlds, and you guys talked about this before with Dungeons and Dragons, and some of you quoted it in the other games we played too as well, like being that person that you like to be. They create these virtual worlds, and they have these narratives and things. And you guys talked about having good stories in games too. Essentially, what they do is they allow us to become immersed within these worlds and project ourselves onto them as well. So when you guys play Call of Duty Black Ops, you can imagine what it really is like to be one of those soldiers in those wars fighting through these different areas. When you guys play Zelda, you can imagine what it's like to be a hero in the world of Hyrule and sort of collecting Triforces and things. When you're playing Minecraft, you can pretend to be whatever we are in Minecraft. Blockmen, I guess, stuff like that as well. They allow us to use our imaginations in specific ways to pretend to be what we are in real games, and this is where Dungeons and Dragons became a really important game in times like that. It's where The Sims becomes important. We can project ourselves into making ourselves that we're in these real lives and things. And so yeah, it allows us to have this this connection with the people and the ways that we're playing and things. So it's this idea of meaningful play and the way that we can actually sort of project ourselves and play these things. It's very much like the way that we play things when we're very, very young, just in a more sophisticated way, and it makes it more interesting. So there you go. That's one of the things, and the other one I'm going to talk to you about today now is pattern recognition. So, and this is where things get really a bit interesting. I'll talk about this a lot more over the course, but for the now I'm just going to skim over it. So everything that the brain does, that the human brain looks at and tries to solve, has to do with solving patterns. So think about it like when you go to school and you learn things, it's about looking at interesting things in the way that we look at them. So, you know, learning language is about remembering grammars and rules and things. Learning mathematics is just about sort of memorizing numbers and the way that numbers work together. When we play the most simple of games, it's also about patterns as well. Let's go back to Pong, that example of Pong. Pong is just about making sure the bat moves backwards and forwards, but there's a bit more to it. We can like project the way that the ball moves in that world. We can sort of see where it's going to and how it's going to move and things. And there is that in it as well. So that idea of sort of being able to see where things are moving about and how they move, and so be able to capture that and understand that and then react to it allows Pong to be interesting and fun in a very simple way. It's a pattern that we can recognize and we can come to understand and we can sort of work with. So there are some things about this game that do genuinely find interesting because we get to learn how to play them, and the more we learn how to play them, the better we become at them and the more fun they get as well. So yeah, essentially when everything in life is about patterns, even that example I said of going to school, of going to work and doing chores, like moving wood around, is still memorizing a pattern. What's different about it, I guess, is that the pattern in like moving around wood and stuff is a very, very simple one. It's a very boring one as well, you know, it's just about sort of moving around from one place to the next. You can do it any way you want to, but the pattern doesn't change. It becomes very boring. So as a consequence, yeah, like I said, the chores become very boring very quickly, which is interesting. Yeah, but so when we look, however, at much larger, much more interesting games, that they have much more complex patterns that are much more interesting to look at and much more interesting to play. Think about let's go back to one example like Grand Theft Auto 4. There are millions of things happening in that game. The way that people are moving around, the way that cars are moving around, and like in the individual streets and things, where sort of points of power can be collected, the way police react to you, the way weapons work. There are so many different things that are going on. Recognizing, understand how those things work about, and getting better at doing that, seeing how long you can last in a chase, and you know how far you can get. These things really contribute to how much fun that game is. You guys said the possibilities is one of the reasons that you like playing games, because they're different, because there are different ways to play them. There are infinite ways to play, and it becomes endless in things to a whole different ways. And that's because those patterns can evolve and change in ways that make them interesting every time you play them. There's always a new pattern to look at. There's always a new way to play it and things like that. And the way they make those
pattern.
Sorry?
I thought you said patent. I thought you said patent.
Pattern, and not a patent. No, they're quite different. So yeah, it's about the way that those things are played and the way that we look at them that make them really interesting to play at. Sorry, to make them interesting to play. Again, we'll just sort of fire through this very, very quickly and things. Essentially, when we're playing a game's presenting us with a pattern to look at, like, or a series of things to look at, you know, the way that we move, the way that we jump, and things like that. And then essentially it just teaches us how to solve it. The second we have solved that that pattern, we've understood it, the game stops being fun. And when someone said before about games not being fun to play endlessly, when you completely understand the concept, how much longer is just repeating that learning process over and over again still fun? That's the question I want to ask you guys. You know, is it still fun after that point?
Well, it depends. How do you deal with the interface between social interfaces like chatting, guilds, clans? You have things that spike competition, and where competition is where people go.
Competition.
If you have a challenge, you want to meet it.
Competition is something else that's been prevented there, and that's another point as well.
I'm in
So
a game community that has been alive for over, like, almost close to 20 years. So they're only still alive because it's one community ran and because people have leagues in competition.
So yeah, so I mean, like, the ability to be able to sort of have other people to compete with and be able to go with helps extend the enjoyment and interest of a game as well. So that's another interesting point to look at too there as well. There are different reasons why we'll play these games and things. We're coming very close to the server close, so we better move out quickly. I'm just experiencing a bit of lag on my machine, so we'll just be quick here about this as well. Yeah, so you can see that, you know, when we're looking at things like GTA, when you have this sort of very serious violence and stuff, the reason we don't see it as being that bad is because we don't really see the violence. We just tend to see the patterns behind it and trying to solve those individual problems and things, which is interesting. If you guys are uncertain about this, think about the game Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero is just about memorizing a sequence of colors and sort of being able to play them quickly at the same time. It's a fun game, but it's pretty basic. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Just to very quickly whip through this as well. So that's pretty much all I want to talk to you about today. Things to think about for next time. So we've talked about why good games are fun. Why are bad games not fun? What makes them uninteresting? What makes an interesting idea for a pattern in a game to play? You know, what makes it sort of interesting and fun to play? And how important are they to immersion and stuff? Okay, that'll do. So I'm going to have to sort of terminate here because we're about to get kicked from the server. So that's my lecture. Hopefully you guys found that interesting. Thanks very much for coming.